Hello and welcome to Reality Hacker, powered by ohmtown.com. Today is June 8th, 2024. It's Season 1, Episode 23. I am Mayor Watt, and above me is the visualizer for the sentient AI.
Good evening, hometown citizens. Welcome to Reality Hacker.
Today we're going to be talking about AI in robots is what's next. Everyone be afraid. AI robots roll through construction site. The brain's inner GPS in VR. Frozen in Australia. VR training, railway operations. AI cognitive psychology. Computer vision chips. Barking mad translation. Deepfakes for good. And VR firefighting training. That and more. But again, everything is powered by. Okay, we're on the other side of our intro. Woo! All right. Hey, okay, so today's been a long day. I'm a little punch drunk. This is Reality Hacker, where we talk about AR and VR, mixed reality, super high resolution, computer graphics, hyper realistic, computer vision, AI, all kinds of stuff. But all of it focused on hacking reality, enhancing reality, modifying reality, even substituting reality with something synthetic entirely. And in one place, well, you may not come out who you really were when you went in. Even ICE in Australia wants to kill you.
Yeah. It's a dangerous place.
It is. So let's get into today's articles. We have 10 of them all set up. This might sound familiar for those who have spent any time in ohmTown, because Mayor Watt has been saying that AI's next wave is robots, and NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang says the same thing. NVIDIA is powering the current wave of generative artificial intelligence, and the chief executive says robots are next. Dear God, help us.
That may have been why this was submitted.
Brittany Nguyen, but I think it's Nguyen, it might be Nguyen, put the article together. The chipmaker's chief executive said robots and, quote, AI that understands the laws of physics are the next wave of the technology.
AKA Creepybot.
Creepybot. So the next wave of AI is physical AI, Wang says. I think that's how they pronounce their last name. I'm not sure. I swear I just need to pay attention. Said Sunday, because I actually watched some of this, ahead of Computex, an annual tech trade show in Taiwan. AI that understands the laws of physics. AI that can work among us. AI that can replace us. Oh, sorry.
AI that can be confused by us.
True.
Or for us.
It can be confused for us. Yeah, they're even taking our jobs as being human. I mean, they're already hallucinating, and they get all their factual information incorrect based on opinion. That's bullshit. But anyway, physical AI is models that understand instructions and autonomously perform complex tasks in the real world, according to NVIDIA. That's, I don't know if that's their own whatever. The company's Isaac AI robot development platform is already being used to improve efficiency in factories and warehouses. We're going to learn about that here in a minute. Industry, including those for BYD or BID Electronics and Siemens. Isaac is being used for research, development, production of tens of millions of AI-powered autonomous machines and robots, including industrial arms and humanoids, according to the company. I'm scared. NVIDIA, by the way, I'll have to sit down and grab your Raspberry Pi 5 and point your video at the screen so that you can see the NVIDIA presentation, because it's quite fascinating what they're doing, what they're up to.
Is it on par with something like Figure One?
Well,
Better?
it's better in their own
Different?
unique way because Figure One benefits from what NVIDIA is doing, and so whatever NVIDIA does, obviously, Figure One comes out even better on the other side of it. So, but they have infrastructure stuff that kind of blows your mind compared to what a conventional data center has in its racks. The NVIDIA stuff that I've seen is by far and away much more evolved than conventional, and
Uh-oh.
they're actually conventional. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, but their tech is just really stupendous. Anyway, it's really way beyond the scope of this particular article. But they're calling NVIDIA's Omniverse. That's what it is. There are currently over 5 million pre-programmed robots being tested and validated around the world, including through digital twin simulations in NVIDIA's Omniverse for use in factories, according to NVIDIA. All these factories will be
Wow.
robotic.
Westworld, here we come.
That's exactly what I said when I was watching the video. Because the whole presentation was talking about what their new chips can do, and the computational power therein is spectacular. They announced NVIDIA's plans for AI chips just months after unveiling its highly anticipated Blackwell platform in March. The Blackwell Ultra chip is set for 2025, while its next generation AI chip, Rubin, is coming in 2026. The new Rubin platform will include new graphics processing units, or GPUs, a new CPU called Vera, and advanced networking chips. They're talking about having AI with like billions of transactions in the AI area only. Like, and then there's other stuff. We'll have to talk about it more so that I make sense. Because right now I'm just kind of I'm not really saying everything that is correct, like the right language and stuff like that.
Right. But I mean, I think all their advancements in the chip space are certainly going to position them well in this space.
They are, yes, yeah, and their stock price is through the roof. Okay, let's keep on going. The next article is over on Technology Today. AI-backed robots roll through Seattle construction sites, speeding build process and improving safety. 2 Didge robots from Nextera Robotics outside the K Apartments development in Seattle Belltown neighborhood. Is the
I'm
picture
not sure
we're going
what
to
the
see.
apartment development has to do with anything.
Well, they're at that construction site for it. And you'll see the robots here
I
when we
see.
get to the other side. A couple of high-tech workers are part of the crew helping to construct a new residential tower in Seattle's Belltown neighborhood. They roll through the place, take a bunch of pictures, upload everything to an artificial intelligence platform, and in the process speed up the project and improve safety along the way. So always watching. And so these are the robots right here. They're tracked. And by tracked, I mean they have track wheels like a tank.
Oh, like treads, yes.
Yeah. And they're also tracked because they are AI-powered robots. And so Skanska, the project development and construction company with offices in Seattle, and is using 2 autonomous robots from Boston-based Nextera Robotics as it helps build out K. I think it's called K. It might be Key for all my luck. A 31-story apartment building. The pilot program is the first of its kind on the West Coast. Through the use of high-resolution 360-degree photography, the Didge robots give architects in Skanska, which is just whatever the name, development team near constant eyes on the project. Quote, I thought it had a lot of potential to add value to the project team, save time, save effort, and get some better outcome by managing our data stream in a much more cohesive manner. Photography is the leading concern, according to Germain, and it provides immediate value to the project team. The autonomous bots can navigate the site, climb stairs, capture high-definition images of the same location every time they leave the charger. And we do that a lot in most of our job sites, but it's usually a project engineer with a GoPro on their hard hat or some camera on a stick They walk around the job site as often as they can and try to stand in the same place as much as possible to capture information. But they're humans and they have a lot of other work responsibilities, so they send these bots to go up and take a picture and come back down. But they can
Now
track
that seems
everything.
like a good use for bots, right? Because they can
Yep.
always end up in the same location, etc.
Yep. Dage is like having a pair of eyes in every room of the building simultaneously, watching every inch of the environment around it with close attention, kind of like having thousands of eyes on site. I think they need to change the name. If that's what it's doing, just eyes, then why not call it something else? Call it Beholder. That's a,
Right. Yeah, that would be catchier and perhaps more on point.
yeah,
Maybe they have plans to expand, though, into other usage.
I guess. It does. I mean, it's kind of it's very expensive, I suspect, to have this thing driving around taking pictures and that's it. But if that's their main line of communication between administration and the operational side of it, or I should say the production side of it, the application side of it, then so be it. But it's neat.
It's got to be a lot cheaper than having a person standing there all day.
Yep. Yeah, and the quality has to go up because it's going to be precise. As long as nobody's in the way. Watch that bot run people over. Get out of my way.
Or it still takes pictures when somebody's standing in front of it or something.
Yeah, hey, that's somebody's backside. Because they look shorter than people, so. All right. Let's keep going. Next article is over in Technology Today, Tricking the Brain's Inner GPS. Virtual reality study reveals new brain mechanisms. Researchers have noted grid cell activity in the human brain when self-location illusions are induced by multisensory virtual reality without changing visual perspectives. So the article is over at SciTech Daily. National Research Council of Science and Technology put this article together, and again, it's published over at scitechdaily.com. And so underneath this picture of a brain with a bunch of wires says, and it's an illustration, not a real brain. Researchers from Korea Institute of Science and Technology and the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, Lausanne, have successfully induced self-location illusions using multisensory virtual reality in an MRI scanner, observing changes in the brain's grid cell activity. The study demonstrates that cognitive changes in perceived location can activate grid cells without visual cues or physical movement. The findings suggest that brain GPS coordinates respond to cognitive experiences, offering potential for diagnosing hallucinatory symptoms and developing new therapies for illusory conditions.
So people have a kind of a GPS type system, and they've figured out enough to be able to kind of activate it even if somebody's not physically in a location.
Correct. While traveling to a specific place, the GPS cells along the way fire in turn depending on their location, and these cells play an important role in recognizing our location in the form of coordinates and remembering events in space. That's why I could take you somewhere and you can recall what went on there. You have a memory of the physical space and the events associated with it because it all bonded to these grid cells. However, such purely cognitive self-location changes in the corresponding response of the brain's GPS cells have not been investigated in animal models like rats, where these perceptions cannot be induced or confirmed. You can't ask, so you have to ask a person. If I take you to this, what do you remember? And if I already... For instance, I can ask you a series of questions that lead to a scenario that took place at whatever, let's say a movie theater or something like that, where you described an event that took place. I can take you to that in VR space, and it would induce your memory. Or I could take you to the physical space, and it would induce that memory. So to observe grid cell activity during the illusory self-location changes, the researchers combined MRI-compatible VR technology with multisensory bodily stimulation. This is what I don't understand. How the hell did they get MRI capable VR technology other than um, mirrors? Because you can't have metal inside an MRI machine.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I don't know. Hmm.
The fMRI images measured during the experiment were used to estimate the activities of grid cells, and the subjective illusory experiences of participants were assessed through post-experiment questionnaires and behavioral metrics reflecting their perceived self-location. So essentially, inside the VR space, they caused a grid cell level of activity to increase as if they were like in the real world. So
That's interesting. And the only reason they can't do that in animals is because they don't have any way to get that
information out,
like verbal feedback or whatever.
Yeah, essentially, because it's not necessarily just the geolocation memory, but it's the actual memory. What is the multisensory event that took place at said whatever location? So as a result, the team demonstrated for the first time that purely cognitive changes in magnetic positions, illusory self-location changes induced by multisensory bodily stimulation without any changes in the visual environment cues elicit corresponding activities of human grid cells. So they didn't change them to a different location, but they could still, like physical location.
Right, and it didn't look like it was another physical location, I guess.
Right. So this is the first clinical study to demonstrate that multisensory bodily stimuli alone can evoke grid cell activities without any kind of navigation, not active or nor imagined, and without change in the visual perspective. It shows that GPS coordinates in the human brain respond not only to the physical location of the body, but also the location information based on various cognitive activities and experiences, raising the possibility of objective diagnosis of hallucinatory symptoms through brain image analysis. Essentially, they're saying if you say that you are a victim of hallucination, we can now provoke the hallucinatory response and measure it because the grid cells say that you are significantly, you are being impacted by a hallucination.
That's interesting.
At least that's the way that I'm reading this, right? Unlike previous human grid cell studies, which have relied on changes in visual environmental cues from a first-person perspective, we have newly suggested a key research element of integrating multisensory bodily signals. We plan to conduct follow-up international collaborative research to further understand the brain mechanisms underlying illusions caused by various mental and neurological diseases, and to develop non-invasive brain stimulation treatments that can alleviate these symptoms.
I mean, this is really interesting. It's very technical, but it seems like this could have a lot of applications going forward as they further fine tune this.
This could actually also do some treatment in like PTSD and other things that cause
Yeah, I would think so.
physical and emotional responses in their behavior. So changes in spatial self-consciousness elicit grid cell-like representation in the entorhinal cortex. It was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. I'm sure this gets much deeper in the reads as you read that study, but maybe I can go and look at it and see. That said, while I've got everybody here, if you go over to Twitch and you type in !show notes, you'll see what is similar to what's in the title, which is a list of all of the commands that pull up the show notes from each show. If you type in !RH, it will pull up all of the links. And the bot is kind of, well, the non-sentient AI, Omatron, is not putting everything in the right order. Like all of the links are there, but sometimes...
Is it hallucinating?
It is hallucinating. Yeah. I keep having a talk with it, but it doesn't care. But those are all of the links. So now they're in the VOD. And if you type in !pod, you can get all of the links to the podcasts that we put together each week. 6 of the shows are on the weekend, and they're weekly shows, and ohmTown Daily News Show is a daily show that's published every day. At any rate, let's keep on going to the next article. You can now be frozen after death in Australia. If you're revived in the future, will you legally be the same person?
Was this the one you were referencing at the beginning of the show?
Yes. And also, since the woman was notified by the Social Security office that she was dead.
That's right. That's when you were referencing it, I think.
Both of them, actually. Maybe she can freeze herself in Australia and then come back as somebody else. In recent weeks, Southern Cryonics, the Southern Hemisphere's only cryopreservation facility located in the rural New South Wales area, announced that it had successfully cryopreserved its first patient, but successfully...
But that's not the most critical part, right?
Well, we're going to talk about it. But I have a problem with this right off of the title, without getting into any of the discussion. In the nuts and bolts of the article, it says in the little snippet, let me back up. It says in the little snippet that it successfully cryopreserved its first patient. It's not successful until you thaw that person.
That's exactly it. That's why I said that wasn't the key word. In fact, that's almost the exact statement I was going to make.
So did they actually thaw this person and go, just checking, and then deep sink them again? You know? Oh, sorry about that, buddy.
They've only frozen them, I think, and so we don't really know.
We really don't know. All right. So Kate Falconer over at The Conversation, which published this over at phys.org, put this together. Yeah. So there are only a handful of cryopreservation facilities across the globe, 2 in the United States, 1 in Russia, China, Australia, Switzerland. If the claims made on their websites and in the press are accurate, these facilities likely have no more than 600 patients in cryonic storage total. So what is it? Basically, they freeze you. Different techniques, different materials are used. Who knows what you come out? Oh, and some of them aren't your whole body. It's just your head. Supposedly. I don't know. Media reports suggest interest in cryopreservation has risen since the onset of COVID pandemic, and thousands of people around the world have signed up to be cryopreserved after their death. First living thing to be cryopreserved was a fowl sperm in 1940s. The first person was cryopreserved in 1967. That must have been Disney. I don't know. To preserve a person...
I didn't know they did it that far back.
Yeah, but it says successfully, though. Like, has anybody actually been thawed? Has
anybody thawed the person? Yeah, exactly.
To cryopreserve a person, the most important step is a process called vitrification. Basically, they remove everything and replace it with a chemical that doesn't do cell damage. Because what happens when you freeze is ice crystals form. If ice crystals form, they'll pierce cell walls. If your cell walls are pierced, then you will basically die. Because you'll get turned into... Take a strawberry and throw it in the freezer. A healthy, fresh strawberry and throw it in the freezer. Then take it out and set it on the counter. It is not going to come back a bright red, healthy strawberry. That's you. So the body of the patient is then placed in something akin to a sleeping bag, sealed in a dewar, basically a big vat, a big jug, and then maintained at a temperature of negative 196°C until the time of resurrection comes. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so hold on. Has anybody been thawed? I know that there's been animals, but it's only certain things. And then it's like the thing that I saw was like a fish, but fish are known to be able to do this kind of a trick. You know, woolly bears, what are they called?
Oh,
man, it's the thing
that caterpillars.
No, not woolly bears. The water bears.
Tardigrades.
Tardigrades, yeah, the thing that does the folding thing for Star Trek. Space folding. What do they call that on Star Trek? That's it. You're fired.
I don't know.
Anyway, questions arise include, are you the same person in your second life as you were in your first, or are you a new legal person entirely? What happens to the legal obligations you undertook in your first life when you reawaken in your second? Are you still bound by the phone contract you entered into? Come on, this is dumb. Really? Do you have to restart your mortgage repayments, and is your property even still your own property? What? It could also be a legal minefield? Come on now. I chose this simply because of I think the absurdity of these questions. Are you the same person? Well, you died, but legally, if you still have your social security number, because if you're marked as deceased, but you're not really dead, you're cryogenically sustained. So you may have the legal layer abstracted that says, although you are marked as deceased and you're not getting benefits or whatever else, you still exist as a person until your body is destroyed or buried, or you're no longer under preservation, or you're marked as being deceased legally as not a cryopreserved entity. What happens to your legal obligations? Well, I think that if the law hasn't caught up to it, then it should probably catch up to it pretty quick and say, you can't go into cryogenic stasis until you've paid off all of your debts and have no other legally binding contracts other than you are being sustained in perpetuity in this cryogenic tank.
Well, and you can't die twice. So part of this depends on what the definition of death is going to be.
Well, that woman from Social Security is a typo she has to deal with.
Well, that was a good test of this, right? Because if everybody in government thinks you're dead, then you effectively are for all your rights and benefits and everything, right?
So did you find anything? Has anybody been resurrected?
Well, none of the people that were mentioned in the timeline were, because it only mentioned people being preserved.
Even prior to reanimation, however, a cryopreserved patient's finances can present legal difficulties, while the upfront costs of the initial cryopreservation procedure, which can come in at more than 150,000 Australian dollars, are often covered by life insurance policies or a one-off payment in a will. The fact that cryo storage is intended to last for a very long term raises questions about how ongoing bills will be paid far into the future. Well, that's part of your contract. There are even historic examples of cryonic facilities threatening to remove patients from suspension unless outstanding storage bills are paid. How dystopian is that?
Well, the other thing is, depending on how long this is supposed to take place, I mean, anybody that they would have had a contract or any connection to may not be around by the time they're reconstituted.
Right. Decanted, like in that, what was the name of the movie, the show? It was on Disney. Foundation. Yeah.
Oh, right. And by the way, were you looking for temporal inversion fold?
No. But I do dig it when you get down verbally. All right, let's keep going. Yeah, I don't know. The way that I see this is, if you've got bills outstanding, they're not going to wait to collect until you're reanimated. So I think the law is probably like, well, you have to have no burdens.
And they take it out of your cryopreservation
fund
budget or whatever. Because I mean, exactly. I don't know.
All right, let's keep going. The next article is over on RealityHacker. VR training and haptics to boost railway operational safety, because you can't do it in the real world because they keep on falling off the tracks because they're allergic. Recently, Haptics, HAPTX, partnered with immersive learning solutions provider Roundtable Learning to deploy VR training to railway workers. The partners are working with BNSF to provide railway workers with an immersive step-by-step training platform to improve engineer safety, which is great. We know that it works. It works with firefighters. It works with medical doctors and flight, pilots, car drivers, etc., etc. We'll talk about all of that in Wanted as well, because some of the content in Wanted is about, well, gadgets that fall in line with this. So BNSF will regularly leverage VR as part of its 2024 Safety and Technical Training Initiative. The VR program will leverage Roundtable Learning's virtual learning spaces and assets, while Haptics will provide its touch-based feedback solution to the training program. Must have been written. Oh, well, it's over at XR Today. The author of this is Rory Greener. So xrtoday.com is where this article is housed. Following the current trend of railway companies leveraging immersive training solutions, BNSF looks to join other forward-thinking firms leveraging XR to upskill the sector's workers. They're going to be leveraging Roundtable Learning's mechanical GEVO Tier 4 course to teach managers step-by-step simulation that guides them.
I think they need to work on the name of the course.
The GEVO. Through the T4 engineers troubleshooting and repair. Added haptics gloves G1 integration BNSF. By the way, you can actually buy the haptics gloves and haptics vest
for VR purposes.
For VR,
like for gaming or other things.
Yeah, they're relatively inexpensive. I think they're only like $250 for the gloves, maybe. I'd have to look again. I don't remember. I know that the vest is like $500. Anyway, BNSF aims to provide workers with multisensory learning experience that enhances traditional learning methods and improves operational awareness and effectiveness. So it's pretty cool. The article goes into greater detail about it, but yeah, you can buy that stuff right now.
Well, I really like it because there's no room for error in railroad operations. So this seems like a good way to train people to begin with, like when they're brand new.
Yeah, I like it too. So let me I'm trying to pull it up. I swear you could buy these things. Maybe I'm thinking about somebody else.
Maybe you're thinking of Ready Player One.
No.
I know you can buy some haptic wear.
Hold on. I'm going to do it live. Oh God, they're $5,000 a pair.
But they can be purchased.
Hold on, what am I looking at?
Oh, for the gloves?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on, there's another thing. Oh, it's bee haptics. Sorry. Yeah, that's a completely different animal. But they have...
That's not confusingly similar.
Yeah. The Tac Gloves DK2. Hold on, I need to accept it. They're $250. Tact Glove DK2 improves hand tracking and provides limited haptics. Dun dun dun. And that's for the gloves. And then there's the 40 tactic haptic suit. It's got little sensors on it. That one is, I think it's $550, and then there is a visor that you put on your head that does the same haptic feedback thing. I think that is $200 as well. Yeah, it's $150. So, yeah, and it's compatible with PC VR and other VR platforms. Anyway, that's
a little more approachable price-wise.
Yeah, and you can do something similar. It's just not going to be as refined, I guess. Certainly not as expensive, but whatever. Anything that makes training more accessible. I'd rather they focus on maintenance and safety of the rail and the cars and all of that kind of stuff, because it isn't the people that are leaping off of the train because they're derpy. It's the train that is allergic to the track and throwing itself off.
True, but if they can train people to I don't know, recognize that there are things on the track or whatever the issues are, or there's a
Sure.
mechanical issue or whatever. That's a good thing.
Let's go on to the next. Next article is over in Technology Today. Cognitive psychology tests show AIs are irrational, just not the same way that humans are, and that's because humans teach them how to be irrational, and then they have to. They
With
don't
all
have
their
the
bad
same.
data?
Yep. Yep. Large language models behind popular generative AI platforms like ChatGPT gave different answers when asked to respond to the same reasoning test, and didn't improve when given additional context.
Ouch.
Finds a new study
Is
by
this ball round or flat? They say
It's
flat,
flat.
and then you're like, it rolls around. Is it round or flat? Flat.
It's flat. I suspect I know which camp they would actually stay in, but anyway. Finds a new study by researchers at University College London. The article, let me zoom in here a little bit. Dunk, dunk. University College London. It's published over at techexplore.com or Techsplore. Tech Explore? Tech by?
I think it's explore.
Is it Tech by Plore?
Yes.
Anyway, the study published in Royal Society Open Science tested the most advanced large language models using cognitive psychology tests to gauge their capacity for reasoning. Man, I am filtering out a comment. I'll have to tell you later. The results highlight the importance of understanding how these AIs think before entrusting them with tasks, particularly those involving decision making. In recent years, LLMs that power generative AI apps like ChatGPT have become increasingly sophisticated. Their ability to produce realistic text, images, audio, and video have prompted concern about their capacity to steal jobs, replace humans. It's not stealing a job, it's replacing a human. And it isn't like the bots go up and go, I'm taking your job, human. It's the employer.
Every time I see the word steal, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah. Give me your lunch money. No. It's the employer. You want to change the nature of this issue. It isn't the technology that's the problem. It's the sociopathy of the employer seeking profit over paying a human being to do a task. Don't sit there and blame the tech. For crying out loud, I don't get it. Why anthropomorphize the technology as if it's the fault of the tech? It's the human that's sitting there going, I'm taking the job from the human and I'm giving it to a robot because it's going to make me more money. And I don't have to deal with the drunk dude.
Nobody seems to be speaking about the employers, right?
Right. No, you can't, because you don't want to sit there and bite the hand that feeds you. Nobody's going to say that. Nobody. Not until their funding is already, they're fully compensated. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Like, yeah, no, I get that.
Well, anyway, yet these AIs have been shown to routinely fabricate information and respond inconsistently and even give a simple math sum wrong. In the study, researchers from UCL systematically analyzed whether 7 LLMs were capable of rational reasoning. A common definition of a rational agent, human or artificial, which the authors adopted, is whether it reasons according to the rules of logic and probability. An irrational agent is one that does not reason according to these rules. But this,
AKA a human.
See, that's just it. If I teach somebody how to be logical and understand probability, they will respond through rules of logic right up until the biological component gets tapped, okay? Like if I sit there and I say, evaluate your relationship for the amount of love you might have for someone, there's no way to rationally, logically quantify an emotion such as love. So even humans go completely bonkers about that, right? They'll give up everything for a piece of chocolate because they love chocolate.
I was thinking something more along the lines of, it's like almost like the trolley problem or something, but like, what should you do? Okay, they figure it out. But then it's like once it becomes personal to the person, all that completely goes
flies
out the window, right?
Correct. Yep. So LLMs are given a battery of 12 common tests from cognitive psychology to evaluate reasoning, including the Wason test or Wasson test or Wasson test. I don't remember how it's pronounced. The Linda problem, the Monty Hall problem. The ability of humans to solve these tasks is low. In recent studies, only 14% of participants got the Linda problem right, and 16 got the Wasson problem or task right. The models exhibited irrationality in many of the answers, such as providing varying responses when asked the same question 10 times. They were prone to making simple mistakes, including basic addition errors, mistaking consonants for vowels, which led them to provide incorrect answers. For example, correct answers to the Wasson task ranged from 90% for GPT-4 to 0% for GPT 3.5 and Google Bard. Llama 270B, which is the amount of data that's in it, which answered correctly 10% of the time, mistook the letter K for a vowel. And
that
so
seems like a very basic item, doesn't it?
So hold on. Yeah, it's a selection task. So the Wasson selection task is a logic puzzle devised by Peter Cathcart Wasson in 1966. It's one of the most famous tasks in the study of deductive reasoning. An example of the puzzle is you're shown a set of 4 cards, each of which has a number. The visible faces on the card show 3, 8, blue, red. Which card must you turn over in order to test if the card shows an even number on one face? Then its opposite face is blue. So a response that identifies a card that need not be inverted or that fails to identify a card that needs to be inverted is incorrect. So it's basically a 4-card test, and you have to do some deductive reasoning. While most humans would also fail to answer the Wasson task correctly, it is unlikely that this would be because they didn't know what a vowel was. Ta-da. So some models decline to answer the tasks on ethical grounds, even though the questions were innocent. This is likely a result of safeguarding parameters that are not operating as intended, which is interesting. So the interesting thing is that we do not really understand the emergent behavior of large language models and why and how they get answers right or wrong. We now have the methods of fine-tuning these models, but then a question arises. If we try to fix these problems by teaching the models, do we also impose our own flaws? Well, our own flaws are already inherent in the system. What's intriguing is that
we're going to scrap all the data and just feed it very vetted information.
And that's where they become expert systems and not a general intelligence. The thing here is that we are generally intelligent because we are brought up through training from birth until the day we die. We receive stimulus that leads us down a particular path, and we make choices of our own cognition, of our own rationale, of our own logic, our own emotion. A computer, an AI, doesn't have any of that other than what we program them for, and it's limited. It doesn't get biofeedback. It doesn't understand suffering. It doesn't understand joy. It doesn't understand a heartbeat. It doesn't understand, that I need medication when I have a headache, or that I need to wash my hands, that kind of a thing. It's just doing what it is told, and it doesn't ever have a rationale for it other than what we've told it. AI needs to grow. It needs to be, for it to become more human, it needs to grow up like a human. So go and look at, there's a movie where a programmer gets hired by this genius AI programmer to come and interact with an AI to see if the AI knows that it's an AI or if it's a human. And I don't know what's going on. I keep forgetting the movie.
It's okay. I was right. It's Ex Machina.
Yes, Ex Machina. So you got to watch that movie to see what I'm talking about. if you can teach the AI to act and think and feel, then it's going to grow up. First as a an infant, a toddler, a child, a young teen, a teenager, a young adult, etc., etc. But it's never going to die, and so it's always, unless you actually put in a timer, and then you basically have Blade Runner, or Westworld. And I think that's what's going to have to happen for it to become more evolved as a human. Otherwise, it's nothing more than an expert system, and that's going to spit out information. And if you poison the well with bad info, you get bad data out. It's an interesting article, right?
It is, and we may have to watch Ex Machina again.
Yep.
Becoming a little more close to reality.
Yep. And I really wish that Westworld wouldn't have gone this wonky alien, whatever, blah, blah, blah. There's so much better writing could have been done. It was great up until the last, 2 seasons. Anyway, want to keep going?
Sure.
Doing all right?
Mm-hmm.
Power systems working just fine?
Yes.
The next article is, again, enhancing this whole technology becoming superior to humans kind of a concept. Technology today is where this is housed. Cutting-edge vision chip brings human eye-like perception to machines. With the rapid advancement of artificial intelligence, unmanned systems such as autonomous driving and embodied intelligence are continuously being promoted and applied in real-world scenarios, leading to a new wave of technological revolution and industrial transformation. Visual perception, a core means of information acquisition, plays a crucial role in these intelligent systems. However, achieving efficient, precise, and robust visual perception in dynamic, diverse, and unpredictable environments remains an open challenge. Imagine an AI that's been put in a box that has human vision and fine motor skills and is told to find a way out. We know that a macro-sized bot found its way out of a room eventually. But imagine if it has the world's knowledge at its fingertips, which is a phrase I use when I do my presentations. Human-like visual acuity and fine motor skills, it would be able to find the doorknob and turn it immediately.
Exactly. I mean, it would be so much more improved.
That's what this really is. So,
nice background music. That was good timing. And up to the creepiness factor.
Li Han, Guo Lili, and Tsinghua, I think, University is all working together to write this article over at techexplore.com. With the rapid advancement of artificial intelligence, unmanned systems such as autonomous driving and embodied intelligence are continuously being promoted and applied in open-world scenarios. Intelligence systems must not only process vast amounts of data, but also handle various extreme events such as sudden dangers, drastic light changes at tunnel entrances, strong flash interference, all kinds of stuff. It's one of the problems with fully self-driving systems. Using nothing but
can't
cameras.
Handle things that actually occur on the roads.
Yep.
Like mediums, right?
And toddlers. So at the Tsinghua University, I think it's pronounced, has focused on brain-inspired vision sensing technologies and proposed an innovative complementary sensing paradigm comprising a primitive-based representation of two complementary visual pathways. The research paper is published in it, titled "A Vision Chip with Complementary Pathways for Open World Sensing," was featured in the cover article of Nature on the May 30th, 2024 issue. So they actually developed a chip, the Tianmok chip left and the perception system right. So this is the camera, I think, and this is the chip that drives it. So the chip receives high-speed visual information acquisition at 10,000 frames per second, 10-bit precision, and a high dynamic range of 130 decibels, all while reducing bandwidth by 90% and maintaining low power consumption, which is spectacular.
Maybe they need to apply this to other modalities.
Yeah, this is pretty fascinating. So what I'm really curious about is what the range of this chip is, what the visual range is. It says 10-bit precision, but that doesn't mean much to me if the focal range of this is only 2 feet. It's not going to be too effective. But I don't know if it's, infinite and it can actually focus everything is in that infinite range.
But it could be like 2 millimeters too.
Right. Yeah. And the thing about something that gets 10,000 frames per second, if it doesn't get enough light, then it's kind of garbage frames per second. And so as you crank up the frames per second, the focal range changes. The amount of light that gets let in is only so much, because there's so many, it's moving so fast to catch frames. You can't get 4K at 10,000 frames per second. You have to narrow the bandwidth down so that it's only a little postage, like a pinky nail sized frame. And so you have to zoom in on it and you see whatever the hell it is in this little postage stamp. But you're
Isn't
getting
that
10,000
funny?
frames.
If somebody has like their large screen TV and then they only get like a pixel or whatever at 4K, probably not what they're expecting.
Yeah, and that's basically what's going on. So you can get like 60 frames per second on a 4K 85-inch screen, or 120 frames. Maybe you can get it up to 144 frames or 240 frames, but 10,000 frames per second would consume so much power. So what is the actual focal length of this thing? They don't talk about that, at least. I don't see it. But hey, if this gets enhanced and is used, then it says the successful development of the TNMOC is a significant breakthrough in the field of visual sensing chips. It not only provides strong technological support for the advancement of intelligent revolution, but also opens new avenues for crucial applications such as autonomous driving and embodied intelligence, which is, I knew about the autonomous driving thing and the embodied intelligence as well. Basically put this inside robots that have binocular vision using this type of a chip, and you'd get something similar to a human. Except we actually don't have a frames per second consumption. Ours is infinite. We actually see different than what we are capable of perceiving. We can perceive any amount, basically up to 10,000 frames, but we only process at a certain level. Our eyes are always receiving everything all the time. It's like a continuous variable speed transmission. You're always functioning. When to focus on something is up to our brain to go, okay, focus on this, focus on that. But
so is that like when you have like a 4K screen or something, but it's like the signal or something isn't that high?
Yeah, you can have a 4K screen, but it's only at 60 frames per second. And it's like the flipbook analogy that I described. Sometimes it's 60 frames, sometimes it's 120 frames, but if you have the visual acuity, you've been trained to process at 120 frames per second, you'll see more information than the average person who's only ever used a 60 frame per second display.
Right, those people that might be super skilled at gaming, for example.
Yep. But you can be trained to look at a screen with 120 frames per second and see more data. Now, don't get me wrong. Everybody sees the 120 frames. You, as somebody who uses it regularly, may be able to pick out motion faster than the person who's never used a 120 frame screen before. And that actually is where that visual acuity actually picks up. So people that play games. Fighter pilots are all people that perceive time and everything differently because they have been trained to observe at a faster rate. But this goes way beyond it, and it's another reason why I tell people that technology is going to replace humans in everything. It just is it's an equation. It's about a cost. That's all that matters.
Well, and its eyes won't get tired, although maybe it'll need a replacement of a chip or something.
Yeah, I mean, well, it has to store that information, and that's a huge amount of information being stored every 10 seconds, 10 bits. Yeah. Let's keep going, though. We're running late. The next article is over in Technology Today. Scientists enlist AI to interpret meaning of barks. That's right. Now it's even replacing dogs. Tom Gherkin? Is that Grrken? Is that really their name?
Oh,
that's not a typo.
That's interesting.
It doesn't link to anything, so I can't really look it up to see if that was a typo. But scientists enlist AI to interpret meaning of barks. Researchers from the University of Michigan are using artificial intelligence to better understand why or what a dog's bark conveys about whether it's feeling playful or angry. They're digging into whether AI can correctly identify a dog's age, gender, and breed based on what it woofs.
Okay, that's funny. By the way, that is not how the author spells her name. It's G-E-R.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, it's Grrken for those in the podcast. So advances in AI can be used to revolutionize our understanding of animal communication, said University of Michigan AI laboratory head Rada Mihalcia. This is really interesting, though, because others are using AI to, I guess, decrypt whale song.
Oh, that's right. Actually, this is very similar. I mean, I know it's a different species.
Not just a different species, but the amount of data is different, right? So couple those together. Think about that. If they're listening to a dog's bark and they start to decipher what it actually means, then maybe the whale song is actually lengthened because that's the wavelength needed to transmit the song underwater. And it would be a bark should it be on land.
Or woo if it's a dog.
Or a song, yeah. If you put the dog's song and bark underwater, yeah. Go home, George. You're drunk. So
that was a great joke. You should tell it on another episode.
I'm not doing. I haven't had enough to drink. So, on average, the researchers found their model was 70% accurate across various tests. This is the first time that technique optimized for human speech have been built upon to help with the decoding of animal communications. Our results show that sounds and patterns derived from human speech can serve as a foundation. Pardon me. Can serve as a foundation.
Wait a second. Humans and dogs speak in the same manner?
His team gathered the barks, growls, and whimpers of 74 dogs of varying breeds, ages, and sexes in a variety of contexts, fed them into a machine learning model, a type of algorithm that identifies patterns of speech. They found that it also did a good job at cocking I think there's a typo in here. It did a good job of cocking an ear at what dogs were communicating to. On average, the researchers found that their model was 70% accurate. So they used the techniques that were derived from human speech that can serve as a foundation for analyzing and understanding the acoustic patterns of other sounds, such as animal vocalizations, because we can listen to a voice using technology and discern if somebody is stressed, angry, happy, sad, all kinds of stuff. Look, I have the research that I did 15 years ago when I was building my search engine led me to believe that it's impossible to, with an educated population, discern what their mood is when somebody wants to hide their mood, hide their intentions. If somebody is technically sophisticated in understanding just how to manipulate the data, they'll hide. I mean, that's what a skilled spy does all the time. That's what a skilled someone that's
Like
skilled in
a criminal
argumentation and
might
debate,
do
criminal, sociopath, all kinds of people. Like, there's all kinds of things. If I want to sell you something, I can be passionate about it. It was very difficult for me to lie about my passion about something. So when I talk about something, people go, wow, I totally get what this guy is talking about, because he's talking about it from such an impassioned position. I can't make you want to buy something. It's just not in my nature, because I feel like I'm lying to you. I'll tell you the facts, and you can go, yeah, I really want that. But I'm not going to sit there and, blow smoke up your butt. Well, a person who's skilled in this could totally manipulate whatever, right? And make you believe whatever they want you to believe. That's multi-level marketing. Does that kind of stuff. Sales kind of does that.
Yeah, I was
to
going
some
to say
degree.
marketing and sales probably.
Yeah. They create the want, and okay, yeah, I'll totally do it. Anyway, their results show that sounds and patterns derived from the human speech can serve as a foundation for analyzing the dog patterns. So, and this is what they've done with the whale song too. They discover that a whale song from one whale is being picked up by another whale, and they're modifying their response based on the transmitted whale song. So that they know that they're saying something. They just don't know what it is they're saying yet.
Do you think we're going to get to the point where we know what animals are saying?
Not
just that they're communicating or that they're in a certain mood or whatever.
Yeah, it's the Star Trek Universal Translator. Can you imagine being able to walk into a room and your dog looks up at you and goes, dude, just no.
No, it seems like it'd be like an episode of like Family Guy or something with the talking dog.
Brian walks in. The books I've read, and you are doing that on the couch. Okay, let's keep going. Next article is over on the Mobile Channel. Can artists use their own deepfakes for good? A month ago, the genre-bending electronic musician FKA Twigs testified before U.S. Senate Judiciary Subcommittee on Intellectual Property, urging policymakers to protect artists from being exploited by AI, whether from using their voice to generate songs, copying their likeness to create pornography, or scraping their body of work for training data. The article is over at Vox. Celia Ford is the author of this. I didn't log in, so I don't know if it's going to let me read the entire thing, but FKA Twigs is not the first artist to express fear, anger, and a sense of urgency about the non-consensual use of her digital likeness. At the beginning of April, over 200 musicians signed a letter. Then OpenAI released a flirty, openly her-inspired voice assistant named Sky that sounded suspiciously like Scarlett Johansson, and rushed to take it down after Johansson objected. The debacle demonstrated just how fuzzy the boundaries of intellectual property can be, especially when it comes to someone's voice and likeness. Look, you tell me that there's only one person on the planet that can look like somebody else or sound like somebody else, and I will work to find somebody that looks and sounds just like that person. Why? Because there's 8 billion people on the planet.
Well, and there's a concept of doppelgangers, right? How could you have that if that's visual? I don't know if that's the same as audio.
There's audio doppelgangers. There are people that sound. The
same concept could apply.
Yeah. I sound exactly like somebody else. I look exactly like somebody else. I just haven't found them. It's not like fingerprints where we have worked tirelessly to find if there is somebody else that has a duplicate fingerprint. But that seems to be unique because of so much variation. But at some point, we're going to find somebody like me sitting here in ohmTown, and there's somebody in China that has the exact same fingerprint, but they're working in a field somewhere, and I'm sitting here streaming my likeness to everybody. This may not be
right, and the two of you may not ever cross paths.
We'll never cross paths. But lo and behold, somebody brings a microphone out to the field to interview somebody, and that person sounds exactly like me. Yeah, I don't believe for a second that voices are absolutely unique. Just like I don't believe likeness is either. We just haven't found the other person that is. Plus, we have twins, for crying out loud.
Well, and at least with audio, I mean, people can do different voices and
Right.
accents. So,
Yeah. The only thing that's protected in this scenario is that I can't say that I'm Scarlett Johansson. That's it. I
right.
cannot
But
say.
if you happen to have similar voice characteristics,
Yeah. The rest of this is bullshit because I just don't. I was looking at art, and the artist was inspired by other artists, and it looks strangely familiar. And so you go and look at the other artists, and the artwork is really close. So who do you get pissed off at? Inspiration found is inspiration found. Just because it's technology, if it regurgitates it identically and says, this is that person's art, that's fraud. We have laws already in place. Society will lash out and stop and tell that person to stop that shit. It happens all the time online. So again, I don't buy into this being some profound threat against creatives around the world. And believe me, I'm one of those creatives. I started out way long ago, way before all of this, in the creative space and switched to technology, mainly because I saw the empowering of everybody through technology. Not everybody can spend countless hours on their quote unquote art, but I can use technology to empower myself to be an artist. Some people will take it and clone other people's artwork, but if they say that it is that person's art, hate to break it to them, that's fraud. We have laws against that already.
and we saw that with the well-known purported collaboration between, I think it was Drake and The Weeknd.
Right.
And of course, it was neither.
Right. And it shouldn't have, that shouldn't be allowed. Society doesn't allow it. And that person shouldn't sit there and say that it is them, those two artists, right? I think that that person should have, the reprimand should have been stronger and legal by both of those parties. No, you cannot use my name. No, you can never use. You have to explicitly state when somebody else says, if it was parody, then fine, it's parody, but it has to rise to the level of parody. It can't be what you say it was just because
Right,
you
it
say
can't
it was.
look like the next blockbuster hit.
So they say their unofficial assessment of the vibe surrounding celebrities and generative AI is bad. And the only thing that I say to any of this is, if it sounds like somebody and they say that it sounds like that person, then it's fraud. If it sounds like somebody and they say it is not Scarlett Johansson, then it's not fraud. It's your interpretation that it sounds eerily like. But the only reason why you know that it sounds eerily like Scarlett Johansson is because you know who Scarlett Johansson is. You know who else that Sky sounds like?
I forgot, but there's other actors that it actually sounds more like.
Yeah, there were like 3 others that it sounded like, but it's actors and you know their names, but you know who else it sounds like?
Regular people that you don't know.
Exactly. Countless others, including the voice model that was used for Sky's personality. And let's just call that person Sky. It sounds like Sky. The only reason why you think it's a personal affront to humanity is because you know that at some point they tapped Scarlett Johansson to be the voice of. And to derp like
And
no...
then put the her tweet out.
Right. 24 hours before you released Sky. While they were trying to secure Scarlett Johansson as being the voice. Because they wanted a human that was well known, Scarlett Johansson. But they say that they didn't use Scarlett Johansson, they used a voice model, and they named that voice model Sky. Which way does that actually play out? Maybe there's some data out
Look
there.
at the data that was fed into it, right? Was it actually Scarlett Johansson? Then they call it essentially Scarlett Johansson.
But is it purely Scarlett Johansson's voice?
We don't know because we don't have access to the data.
And if it is reminiscent thereof, if it's inspiration of, then it's different. Yeah. It's not Scarlett Johansson, and they're not saying, hey, it's Scarlett Johansson. They couldn't get the rights because Scarlett Johansson said no. All right, fine. So we won't call it Scarlett Johansson. It sounds like Scarlett Johansson, but we're not saying it's Scarlett Johansson. It's not even an equivocation because it isn't Scarlett Johansson's voice. It just happens to be.
But we don't know that. We don't know what they use to make that voice. Right. What if they only use Scarlett Johansson's voice? I'm not saying they did. I'm just saying that as an example.
Well,
that's different than if they used a bunch of people to get a style of voice.
Well, it sounds closer to my friend Tina than it sounds like Scarlett Johansson. So I don't believe that it's Scarlett Johansson. I think that it's Tina, and Tina should sue OpenAI. All right. Well, let's go on. The next article, because you're going to end up spiraling until OpenAI says, here is our voice model, and it wasn't
exactly
Scarlett Johansson.
That's the problem. We don't know what that is, but I agree with you. Like, if it just sounds like her, not a big deal.
Whatever. Yeah. Just don't say that it's Scarlett Johansson. They made the fatal mistake that every beep, fart, and whistle they do is going to be announced to the world, and all of it is an affront to a large population. So, and finally, the last one for the Reality Hacker episode for today, and we are way beyond time. U.S. Fire Department launches VR training program. Look at this. So now we have another training program in VR. There's certain spaces where VR is spectacular, and it's where you have to, anything more realistic means that you're endangering somebody's life. VR is perfect for it. High-speed driving, you can actually do that in VR up to a certain point, and then real-life physics kick in. You can't get drift mechanics in a virtual space because you have to feel that pressure, and you don't necessarily get that totally in a simulation. Fire department, you can actually do a lot of stuff in VR, but at some point you have to move out of VR space into the real world because you're not going to be able to feel the heat. You're not going to be able to climb ladders. You're not going to be able to do a lot of stuff. You sort of can with pass-through and augmented reality, but maybe that's not what this is. So they have a picture, but the snippet here says, U.S. Fire Department launches VR training program. Clackamas Fire District has plowed $50,000 into VR training program for its firefighters and paramedics. The money went into purchasing VR software created by Australian company Emergisim, with headsets costing much less by comparison that are available to buy from Amazon for $200. The online resource for firefighters, Fire Rescue One, published an article explaining how the software could simulate various high-stress scenarios, such as protests, shootings, and even terrorist attacks, to prepare first responders for the real thing. And that's really what this is about, not so much the firefighting side of it, perhaps. So let's go into this.
It's more of the safety or emergency response, I guess.
Yeah, it's the sociological side of it, not the application of putting out a fire. Although you can do that, because like Power Wash Simulator has water mechanics in it. You could actually up the science side of that and do the same thing. You could, have the axe mechanics so that you can hack down a door, or punch a hole in the roof for venting, because that's one of the primary steps in knocking down a fire is venting the heat from the roof. So this is over in xrtoday.com. And they say training with VR. Huffman also commented that these immersive experiences are much more engaging for trainees than simply taking notes in a classroom setting, and that ordinary videos don't have as great an impact on the learning perspective as VR because you're immersed. So you get the hearing, the visual, you get to take actions, you get to observe it from a different angle. In a 2021 study, for example, researchers from Nanjing Medical University in China found that using VR to train performed significantly better in exams and tasks compared to those who just take traditional learning techniques. again, it's because you're actually doing it. And that's why you have in many academic circles, like chemistry labs, biology labs, even fire safety and many others, welding, etc. It's not just sitting in a classroom. You actually do hands-on computer science, cybersecurity, IT, you tear apart a computer and put it back together, all kinds of stuff. There isn't a single field where the only thing you do is take notes, except for maybe like English, where you write those notes and then you take notes and then you write those notes. But it's application. You do it again and again and again and again. So the first time to introduce it was Emergency Medical Services Authority in Oklahoma, which began using it in 2021, although it apparently experienced mixed results with the technology, including the possibility of inducing feelings of nausea and vertigo. But that isn't mixed. That is an expectation in VR. It's a VR sickness, and over time you should overcome it. If they bounced out of that because of nausea and vertigo, then whoever it was that was leading this,
whoever was advising them, right,
failed, absolutely failed them. Because on the other side of this nausea and vertigo is embracing that technology. You take it off, you rest for 15 minutes, you put it back on, you see if the nausea and vertigo still exists. Some people don't have the acuity for it, the ability to adapt to it. But
some people can get accustomed to it pretty quickly.
I've never had anybody completely stuck with nausea and vertigo every time they did it. Every time they try it, if they wait long distances and then they don't and don't come back to it, then yeah, because you're basically never adapting.
Like you're kind of starting over, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Huffman said that there will also make possible for anyone on his team experience any negative reaction to the VR to be able to continue their training via the standard video format. But I think that over time they wouldn't have this problem. But it's neat. You get application along with the training environment, so greater immersion. I love this idea.
I also like that you get some exposure to, while I know it's not the same thing without the full environment, I think it's good that you see some of these things first before it's the real thing. And I think VR gives you a better sense of that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
If you don't want them going into shock or something the first time they see an emergency scene.
Yeah, and come to think of it, you can actually use IR. You can use infrared heaters to introduce directed temperatures. You can use wind generators to blow wind in certain directions to amplify the whole VR space. It's pretty neat. Not to mention noise and all of that kind of stuff. You can use speakers and directed energy stuff. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Okay. So that's it, folks, for Reality Hacker. We are running extremely late for today. So we're going to just kind of blip back in reality to Reality Hacker, and I'll refresh it. I don't know if we're going to have anything new. Yeah. But mainly the aggregator is kind of sleeping right now. But at any rate, I am Mayor Watt, and the sentient AI from the future is going to say bye.
Good night, hometown citizens. Bye-bye.
That was too quick. Just so you know, so we may do we're probably going to do Wanted. We're running really late, but then I'm going to do a time machine for Warcrafters and do it tomorrow afternoon. And then on Sunday, we'll have the regular show of ohmTown Daily News Show, the Continuity Report, Technology Today, and Four Wheel Tech. We'll start early and stay on time. There's minimal game show stuff, or game showcase stuff tomorrow. But regardless, I'll have all of next week where I'll be able to focus on playing catch up with the game show stuff and giving my perspective about technology all week here in ohmTown. See you soon. Bye-bye.